Assalamu alaikum. This is Layla Abdullah-Poulos, and welcome to NbA Muslims Authors Speak. First and foremost, I have to apologize for my little ones in the background. All the teens are gone, so I'm sorry. And so you may hear them a little bit. Okay, so you've watched me review the books, and so now's the chance for me to talk to the authors so that readers can get to know them better. And the author that graced us with her presence today, despite the lateness of where she is, which I really appreciate, is Juwayriyah. And she is the author of, she's written many books, but her most recent book that we're going to be talking about today is Tried and Tested. Assalamu alaikum, Juwayriyah. How you doing?
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, I told when I saw that it was available on Amazon for some, I'm telling readers, get this book. You got to get this book. You have to read this book. You have to sit back and read this book. And I'm so glad that I did read the book because it really is reflective of a lot of aspects of the African American Muslim experience, which I think you did a very good job in showing that. But also, one of the things that I found the most profound about your book is the way that you treated relationships, and specifically troubled relationships in the book. Mainly two of them, the one between the main character, Amani, and her husband, Mateo, and Amani's brother, Masood, and his wife, Yasmin. So can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to kind of like create this relationship between Amani and Mateo?
That is right about what they know. And I wanted to address um, different issues in relationships in the Muslim community, Indigenous American Muslim communities. I wanted to get away from the ideal and talk about some realities that what's going on. Um, Growing up Muslim, I've had Muslim friends who have struggled in and out of the religion. Some of them have been in abusive relationships. Some of them have gotten married early and found the guy of their dreams, which is what Masood kind of represents with Yasmin. Young Muslim love, striving, Masood not really knowing everything that he should do. And oftentimes somebody in his family will try to redirect him and say, hey, pull back or go forward and do better. So I wanted to show all sides, whether it was abusive relationship or a loving relationship, strong family, broken families. I wanted to give a 360 view.
Well, one of the things that I found really dynamic about the relationship in particular of Mateo and Imani is the fact that Mateo's not Muslim. Now, I've only had read one other author who kind of addressed this idea of a Muslim woman kind of being attracted to a Muslim man, because that's a reality that, people don't like to admit to. But Imani actually it runs off with and marries Mateo, despite the fact that he's not Muslim. So what made you decide to really go out there and create this type of relationship for your characters?
Yeah, that was scary. That was scary. But again, just from things that I've heard and read and seen growing up Muslim, going to public school all of my life, I saw Muslim girls with non-Muslim boys. Sometimes they convert. You have that shotgun marriage, and the father's like, Abu's like, oh, you gonna marry her? You get married. You gonna get married tonight. We gonna have that. But in some other cases, the significant other, the non-Muslim significant other, has a stronger pull with a young Muslim girl and will pull her into his life.
Okay. Which is what Mateo does. Mateo is not feeling the whole Muslim conversion. Papa don't scare him.
Nope.
And so he pulls her, and it's very interesting the way that he pulls her. I have to tell you, you really did a good job in kind of showing the seductive side of abusive manipulation when an abuser manipulates the person that they're controlling. So you were really, really good about that, because it's like a lot of times the treatment of any kind of domestic violence, partner relationship, you know, you kind of see like the middle to the end. So this whole thing where it's just like, you know, the abuse has already started, it's already happening, and the victim is trying to escape. Well, oftentimes what a lot of authors, especially Muslim authors, seem to not address is this whole seduction that occurs that pulls the person in, because it's not like, you know, he walked up to her and said, "Hi, my name is Mateo," and socked her in the eye, you know, because it wouldn't happen that way. So that was one of the things that you addressed. He knows how to manipulate her, despite the fact that he ends up abusive to her. He knows how to manipulate her, and so does the other abuser in the other relationship. Knows how to manipulate the victim so that the victim keeps coming back and the victim keeps running back. Okay, and that's oftentimes we don't get to see that, and you show that in your book. Is Amani's attraction to Mateo, despite the fact that he's not Muslim, do you think that that's something that is prevalent in American Muslim society, that there's this ability, you know, it's not like being Muslim is like necessarily going to completely shield you from a predator when they seek you out. So do you think that that's something that Muslims are falling the mark on, not really appreciating the fact that this can occur even though the other person is not Muslim?
Absolutely, especially with young Muslim girls. We have so many. The majority of Muslim youth attend public schools. Muslim youth are intermingling with non-Muslims on a daily basis. Growing up and attending a public school, and then working as an educator in public schools and seeing the minority of Muslim students in the student body and what they had to deal with. It's like, and then the parents on the other side setting up all of these different rules and regulations. But once they enter that school building, it's a different situation. It's a different world, you know. It's a school culture. You know, they may have to work with them. Imani was very naive. Even though she was going to school and she had a little part-time job, she really had never experienced young love. Like, that was the first guy who ever said anything to her. That was the first man who ever said to her, "Oh, you're so beautiful. Even dressed the way you are, oh, that is beautiful." And girls, Muslim girls love it. And it's like, whoa.
And the thing is, she had a really good relationship with her father. A lot of times we think, oh, it's daddy issues. But her father was a good man and he loved her. I mean, he picked her up and from work and everything like that. So it wasn't that she's coming from this dysfunctional family. She was part of a very functional family, but he knew how to work her.
She met a real one.
And
she met one who knew what to say, what to do, waiting for her every day, bringing her things, just really just giving her attention that every young girl would eat up. Any girl.
And the scary thing is,
the hijab doesn't protect you from that.
And the scary thing is that happens right under the parents' noses. And a lot of times we kind of think that it's been my experience, and I think as a parent I've done it as well. If you're protecting your children, especially your girls, I mean, quite honestly, let's be honest, we're a little bit more protective of the girls than the boys.
Yep.
Which is total nonsense, because you know, non-Muslim girls go after them with a vengeance.
Yes, they do. They do.
And so we have a tendency to get this false security that, you know, we're raising a good girl and she would never do anything like that. She's going to school and she's getting good grades and she has a job, so I have nothing to worry about. And so he's going every single day to pick up his daughter, and Slick is right there. You know,
he's there.
His daughter.
Right underneath his nose.
And he doesn't know, you know, about it. Because if a child wants to hide, if a young person wants to hide something from their parents, they're going to hide it. The only thing that's going to reveal it is the law. That's it. They're definitely going to, until they decide to reveal it themselves, the only other way it's going to be revealed is if the law reveals it. So this whole idea that, you know, there is this reality of, you know, even, you know, covered up and everything like that, you know, the beauty and the vibrancy of a young Muslim girl is something that someone's going to be attracted to, Muslims and non-Muslims. It's just, that's the reality of what's going to happen. When Imani gets involved with this person, which she kind of, in the book she said, like you said, she was naive, and she said she wanted a boyfriend. She wanted to go to, because she wanted to go to the movies. You know? She wanted a boyfriend.
She wanted somebody to buy her popcorn and a soda.
Exactly. And so that's what she thought she was, but she got more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Than Mateo. And so she ended up basically destroying her life, okay, and
Yeah.
getting involved in an abusive relationship. And then she comes back. And as she's coming back, it's not like once you you just cut it and that's it. It's very rarely that way, because abusers are controlling. And so that's what they want to do. They want to continue to control you. And so if they want to do that, they're going to pursue you, which is what Mateo does. Mateo pursues Imani. She's scared of him, and at the same time, she wants him. Okay, which is another dynamic of abusive relationship that kind of falls to, like, people don't understand, but you bring out. Imani talks about the fact that at the same time that she's afraid of him, she wants him. She wants to go to him. So, do you think, again, like, we don't really fully understand the complexity of that type of relationship?
Absolutely not. I think that a lot of women and men are ashamed to express any sort of emotional, warm and fuzzy feelings for the person who is also abusing them. But you have to recognize that it's still a relationship. It still has those warm and fuzzy feelings sometimes. Mateo, as he said, he was providing for her. He was working for her. He was buying her nice things. He was getting her hair done, getting her shoes, and taking her places and giving her things that she'd never even seen before.
And he's very smooth. Yeah. He's very smooth, because even in that first conversation that they have after she leaves him, and in the first conversation that she had, I mean, first of all, I don't want to give too much away about the book, but the way that he handles, he's handling her the whole time. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Even when she's away from him, he's handling this woman the whole time. So even before he talks to her, he's actually still handling her in the background. And when he talks to her, he flips it on her really, really, really well, where she doesn't know where she's coming or going, and she has to assert certain things, but as she's doing it, she's doubting herself. He's really, really good at doing it. And excuse me, I think that's one of the things that people always fail to see. And I think it's because, when you're talking about violence, that it's the first objective is to get the person that's suffering the violence away from the violence. Okay. But the relationship, like you said, is not just violence. There are other things that are going on in that relationship that can overshadow the violence in the victim's eyes a lot of times. And the other victim in the other marriage does that, Omar. And that was one thing that I thought, I'm telling you, sis, it was fabulous. It was fabulous, fabulous, fabulous that you addressed. You're the only other Muslim author that addressed domestic violence from a male perspective. And you went a little further in that you really showed his perspective and what he had to face and what he had to encounter, which is very different than what Imani had to encounter. So as I read the book, I looked at these two relationships and these two victims, honestly, and one a male and one a female victim, and what the female victim had to go through and her thought processes, and the male victim and what he had to go through and what he expressed, which in some ways was very similar to Imani's. I mean, Omar, his obsession with the woman that he loved, his wife, was very apparent in the actions that he did, despite her being abusive. But there are other things that he had to confront that you show in the book that I'm not going to give away. But there are other things that he had to confront that I was like, man, what brothers have to go through this. You know, like male victims have to go through this whole framing, the way that they're framed, you know, because immediately if you see two people, one's a man, one's a woman, the woman is half the man's size, okay? And the woman, they're both bruised up, okay? They're both bruised up.
Yeah.
What are you gonna think? You know,
Everybody's gonna think she's fighting for her life.
she's
She
finally
was
gonna
just
this brute.
yeah. Trying to get out of
So,
there.
get out. So it's like
Yeah.
on top of being abused, yeah. It's just like now I'm seeing as the abuser, you know, and it's like I thought that you did that very, very well. So like this whole these two very violent relationships that occur, and then with like you mentioned Masood, the young Muslim man who married young and his wife, and they're very much in love with each other, and he's struggling and he's having a hard time too because he's also the man of the house. So he is the patriarch of the family.
Uh,
He's the acting patriarch of the family, which has to be a whole lot on him. And he
yeah.
does express that level of frustration. You know, we do expect young Muslim people to get married and young Muslim men to, at an early age, a very early age, to start thinking about marriage, to start thinking about this role maintainer and protector and provider. And he
Mm-hmm.
takes on this, but he struggles with it. So, I mean, is it fair, do you think, to kind of like put these expectations on young Muslim men? And if it is fair, what do you think we can do to kind of help them? Because if this is reflective of what a young Muslim man goes through, when he
Mm-hmm.
starts a family, it's like, you know, I'm surprised he didn't like get in that car and just keep driving. So,
Yeah.
what he
He
got a
that's
whole lot heaped on him at one time.
yeah. Yeah. With Imani coming back and his sister and his mother's situation and his brother's situation. I think he was overwhelmed. I think he was pressed. Um, you know, his wife expecting a baby right away. It was just a lot for him to deal with. Um, I think that we, especially in the Indigenous American Muslim community, we put a lot of pressure on Muslim boys. It's like they slide for the first half of their life. You know, all the attention is on the girls. You know, cover yourself, don't talk to boys, don't drink, don't. So the boys are just skating along. But then all of a sudden, you know, they come of age, they reach 18, they go to college, and you're like, okay, you need a wife because you're not gonna go out there and bring anybody home. So let me find somebody for you. Or, you know, let me, you know, you going to the masjid to learn Quran. Are you gonna, you know, I'm sending you over here. All of a sudden, we take a lot of stuff and then just throw it in their lap. All of this pressure, like you said, protector, provider, you know, in a lot of situations, a lot of homes, either single, what happens? Her son becomes the, you know, like you said, the man of the house. Lead the salat, get the groceries, clean up, do this, protect your sisters. You know, that's what you're supposed to do. So we have to, it's a situation that we have to think about. How can we support these young men and young women to take on these roles in um, a way that gives them mentorship? Very important, of course. You just can't throw people. You know, you don't prepare soldiers on the battlefield. You know, they need mentorship. They need activities. They need community centers. As I said before, more things in place in our communities for our youth to grow and to learn and to take on leadership roles gradually. You can't dump things into people's lap and expect them to succeed in something that they've never done before.
And his father's dead. His father's dead,
Mm.
who would have been a good example for him, but his father's gone and his older brother's
Yeah.
gone. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's off the scene. So here is this young man that's left, like you said, everything, and he has so many pressures that you could kind of, I kind of thought that he would pop. I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I thought he was gonna pop off on Yasmin because at first it's like it seemed like almost every guy in the daggone book was abusive. Okay, and yet, but they ended up not all being such. But I'm just saying, it's
Right.
just like you kind of prepare yourself for that. You set that up very, very nicely, I have to say. Okay, because I went in through the first chapters with all of these assumptions and everything, and then you were like, oh no, by the way, boom, it's not like that. It's like
Yeah.
this, that. So I kind of thought he was going. I thought he was going to pop. And one of the things that I found very, very interesting about him is that he cursed when he was mad. Okay. Um, he would blow up. He was ready to do some damage when he had to. But when
Yeah.
he looked at Yasmin, when he looked at his pregnant wife, all of that disappeared every
Yeah.
single time that he looked at her. It was just like she was an anchor for him. Even though he thought that he was about to be a father, he was a husband and everything, she was still this anchor for him. And so all of those pressures and everything, he shielded her very, very well from all of them. She knew,
Hmm.
and she did her best to like support her husband in the way that she could, like being out to there and pregnant and everything. But it's just like that was that, and that does happen. Like I've seen that, and one of the things that I realized that there are a lot of Muslim men that are like that, and it seems like they're just cutting their lives off. Okay.
Mm.
And when they come home, that's what they want to do. Honestly, when they come home, they want to shut it off and they want to cut it off
Yeah.
because so that they don't blow up. They want at least one place where they don't have to deal with all of that. And poor Masood, because I mean, they must have been huddled in that bedroom together so many times because
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, he couldn't catch a break. He's
No.
laying in bed with his wife. There goes some fool pounding on the door, trying to get in.
Yeah.
And he got to go to work in the morning. So it's
That is
like,
true.
that's the other thing when you're talking about like abusive relationships, it affects everybody. So in the book,
Yeah.
everybody at some level is affected by these abusive relationships that occur.
Mm.
Whether it's something not just the victim, so whether it's something that's very, very physical, which happens, or emotional, which happens, it's like all these layers of people getting affected by either having to witness or know about. One scene where the sister has the black eye and just seeing that black eye. What happens to a person when they see that and how you react to that and how you react to the person's reaction. You bring that
Hmm.
out in the book, and a lot of times that's not covered because it's this whole thing. Well, just leave him. But
Hmm.
why are people so anxious for someone to leave someone that's abusive? Not only for the victim, but also for themselves. Do you think that like some of it's kind of like self survival because it can't be easy to see someone you love go through that?
Right. Right. I think that it's just a quick fire thought. Okay, just get away from it. Come away. Stop it. Turn it off. Just turn it off, and it won't be a problem anymore. But like you said, it's a relationship, so there's other layers that you have to heal from, and it's not a one-day process that you can just turn off like a faucet. Even if it had been with Amira and Umar the other way around, if she was the one with the problem or being abused or something like that, was not able to turn it off right away.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to be able to.
Omar didn't turn it off.
He didn't turn it.
Omar and
It didn't for
Imani didn't
long.
turn it off either. It didn't
No.
happen that way. And I found it ironic that you have this family where they were both the siblings were brought up in functional households. Okay, again, like Amani and her sister were brought up. The parents owned the home. Everything was stable. The father worked. They didn't see their parents fighting or anything like that. And yet here are these two siblings that are in these relationships, and one is telling the other to leave. So even though she got a whole lot of exceptions for herself, Amani.
Yeah.
She's telling Amira to leave right away. which I found was like just the ultimate irony. Like, really, for real, did you just skip town, or
And that's what
and your
Amira had
friend
to
is
bring her.
finding
You don't know
you?
my situation. You don't know what's going on, so don't talk to me. You know, Amira was very offended by that. But
Yeah, she was.
oftentimes that too, like when people get overcome something, or Imani thought she had overcome something, and now she was able to give advice to Amira, but Amira was like, it's unnecessary,
Yeah,
and I didn't ask you for it
you don't
because you
know
don't
my
know my
business.
situation. Yeah, you don't know my business.
He's like, you got your thing. That's your thing. My thing is something totally different. You know, like that, which it actually
She
turns
tried
out
to
to
warn
be.
her. Yeah, she tried to warn her.
Which actually turns out to be, and that's a
Yeah.
whole nother thing about the book. Is it's like when it flips and everything that happens at that point was really, 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 really fascinating. But it's just like when you have this, and also I think that you have other characters who actually tell their stories in a way that kind of show, like just the realities of living a life. And a lot of times, authors like to kind of treat, and Muslim authors try to like to treat Islam. Either they don't treat it at all, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, the characters are just like culturally Muslim. But when they do
Mm-hmm.
treat it, they kind of are. They use kid gloves when they want to write about the realities. And it's very
Mm-hmm.
few authors that actually have the nerve to really write about the realities. And I have to say, African American Muslim authors are the main ones that are doing it. That are kind of just like, yeah, we have Kiwars and Kufis, and we go to Juba, but
Yeah.
let's be real.
Yeah.
Let's be real about what's going on here. Yeah, he's not Muslim, and she's not the only one that gets involved with the non-Muslim, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I found
Absolutely.
very interesting, because that's the other reality. What
That's the other
happened,
reality.
and how that can be.
I had to address it for the
Yeah.
readers. I definitely had to address it. I couldn't just skirt by that because in our communities, it is actually the brothers more so than the sisters who are bringing in, who are openly marrying non-Muslims and bringing them, to the Eid prayers, to the iftar. And,
In many
there are so many sisters sitting there, wondering, well, when I'm going to get chosen, who's going to marry me? And, so I definitely wanted to address that as well.
No, you did a very good job addressing that, and this whole idea of being making a decision about what it is you want to do. And I thought it was very interesting because there were characters who kind of like started off feeling one way about it and then kind of switched up because as they got older, their worldviews changed. And so their whole idea of these types of relationships changed as well. It
Yeah.
definitely did for Imani. I kind of wonder if Mateo wasn't abusive, if she would have just stayed and stayed in that life. Because it was something
Mm.
interesting. It was something interesting that Mateo said to her that was kind of like, oh yeah, that's right. Maybe if he
Yeah.
took his hands up off her, she'd still be
Mm-hmm.
hanging somewhere. Let's be honest, But she didn't. She
But
went back.
Mateo was trying to work on some things. He came to a point where, he realized that he needed some help. Um, so that'll be interesting to play with later on when I deal with him again, inshallah.
Oh yeah, you got to deal with Mateo again. You got to deal with Mateo again. You definitely do. He's like one of the best characters in Muslim fiction that I've read so far. Okay,
Yeah.
and ironically enough, I don't know what it is, but a lot of times it's not Muslim characters, and I think it's because Muslim authors have a tendency to have more license with non-Muslim characters. Non-Muslim characters
Oh, yeah.
that you won't necessarily let Muslim characters do. And I'm just like, why don't you let one author did, Shahada, which she had in her book No God But God. She had
But God,
the
last
Muslim
year.
temple, which I loved because I just was like, oh my God. And it wasn't just like a tropey thing. Just like Mateo. Mateo is just not like this black hat, tropey, stereotypical or anything like that. I mean, the way that he comes off, the things that he does, the way that he acts, is just like, wow, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you definitely have to bring him back. I wanted more of him in the book. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I'm just like going through the pages, like, and where's my man Mateo? Ah, there he is. Mateo. So, you know, and I think if Muslim authors actually did have, you know, I think that American NBA Muslim authors really are really primed to go out the gate and address issues. I mean, a lot of them have shown that they're willing to do that, and they're still stopping just short of certain things, which I totally understand, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just hoping that at one point that level of inhibition will kind of like dissipate, so that issues can be addressed. Some of the harsher realities of what to live life as an American Muslim can kind of be brought out more, you know. And I know it's a difficult thing. I know it's not an easy thing because you don't want to seem like you're glorifying anything
Right.
or anything like that. But it's like there's just really reality. I mean, there are Muslims, okay, there are Muslims that are making salat and then doing a drug deal down the street later on. Let's be honest about it. There are Muslims that are going to Juma, taking off their clothes and going to turn tricks. Okay, let's be honest. And what is happening in their lives with is just like this conflict because they don't want to
Yeah.
let go of their faith. Okay, that's why
Mm-hmm.
they're there. But all of this other stuff is going on in their life. So what is happening to make that
Right.
to have all of that occur? I mean, you have these Muslim children. I mean, the Hassan. I loved Hassan, the little boy. What's
Yeah.
his name? Sharif's son.
Three son.
Loves him. I love when he disappeared and she was like, "Where were you? I'm gonna call the police. You're gonna get kidnapped." She's like, "Who kidnapped a little black boy in the hood?"
Yeah.
Like, he knew the reality of his existence. You
Yeah.
know, that's the thing. He knew the reality of his existence, and that one sentence is just like, this kid is not stupid. He knows what's
Right.
going on. He knows what's going down at a young age, which is what happens when you're African American in America.
Yes.
You can't be juvenilized. You can't be, you know, you can't be treated like an infant forever. There are harsh
Yeah.
realities of your
Yeah.
existence, even when you're in the
Yeah.
most stable homes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a harsh realities of your existence outside of that home. And so he knew that. And he just reminded his aunt. Wait a second. Wait,
Yeah.
let's get real. Let's get real here, all right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like that type of thing. So it's just like when you address those issues, it serves as a social commentary, and it also expresses a way of life, you know, that
Yeah.
can be very, very unique. I mean, even when you are having the sisters are having the conversation about cooking meals for
Mm-hmm.
Ramadan, you know, that's a reality of our existence. And it's just like you feel like you're okay now. You know, those are my sisters. Yeah, I know those sisters just like that. I know that one bossy sister that's going to tell everybody what they got to do. All right, that vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the whole conversation about being vegetarian. It's just, but that's the reality. It's just like it was. You did a phenomenal job in that, and I just think that it's really, really important because we have this whole. We're pushing back against this erasure that
Mm-hmm.
occurs. Okay, especially when it comes to in fiction, you know, and I'm gonna call out not anyone specifically, but non-Black Muslims in particular, in their tendency to kind of like negate the existence of all of these other authors and especially native born authors. So it's kind of like, you know, when they do have the mic, when they do have the spotlight, when someone is trying to say, well, tell us about this Muslim fiction, you know, they tend to stick to themselves. They tend to stick to Desis and Arabs, and they very rarely like kind of go out and say, well, there's also these authors as well. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, so I think it's really, really important that NBA authors continue to write and continue to write about the realities of what it means to be native born and living in America and have full ownership of the citizenry and everything like that and have stuff going down. You living in certain places and certain things are going down and they're going to go down certain ways. You know, I'm still kind of waiting for an author to have the nerve to kind of deal with bias in Black communities against Muslims, which is treated, it just like is very, very specific and not the same as general bias by white non-Muslims. It presents itself differently. Okay, it's treated differently, and I just kind of wait for an author to kind of address that as well. But maybe one day one will. So, do you think? Oh, did, I see that smile.
I keep my notebook.
Get your notebook out. Get your notebook out.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just like the conversion. So the whole idea of that and what happens, I mean, with Omar and the fact that he's a convert, they're born Muslims, and that this whole idea that every African American Muslim is a convert, or every white Muslim is a convert, or every Latino Muslim is a convert. We're generations in here. and so and things happen, and you need a specific way. One of the things that I found interesting though is that I don't know if he did it purposefully. They're all African American or Latino characters. Did you, except for like a couple really really tertiary characters, but a lot of the characters are either African American or Latino. Now, did you do that purposefully?
Yes, for this novel. In The Size of a Mustard Seed, it was more. You had white sisters, and you had African American, and I had some Malaysian and sisters from Thailand and Pakistani. And it was very diverse. I definitely grew up in a multicultural Muslim community in Massachusetts. I have to tell you, I'm from Massachusetts, so we don't have. But Pittsburgh is the backdrop of tried and tested. And when I actually lived in Pittsburgh for a little while, and it was actually my first time living in a community that was predominantly African American and Latino.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to stay true to that, of what I saw in Pittsburgh.
Okay. So just by virtue of the fact that the setting is a specific cultural experience, and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's Latino, African American. You're not going to see a whole bunch. I converted. I wasn't born Muslim. I converted, and and I attended predominantly African American masajid for a couple of years before I married my husband. And it does get like that, where it's just like you're navigating through your whole life, your Muslim life, and it's just like really it is that black.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen. It is that black. In some ways, I kind of miss it a little bit, because there weren't the same amount of microaggressions and stuff, and racism and bias that I have to face, and my kids have to face, and I kind of miss that level of comfort, that I just really haven't gotten in the masajid that I attend now, because they're diverse. And it's not even that matter that it's the diversity that's the problem. The problem is that the people don't know how to treat diversity.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Because I even see where I live, it's everybody and everything, it seems like, I think we have. But there are very much, you don't get invited to a lot of things as an African American. But also I see like there are lines drawn. So at least this is in my community. Someone else may have a totally different experience in their community. And that is like, the African Americans and the Latinos and the white Americans and the Caribbean Americans and Bengalis.
Yeah.
Kind of like there's like this kind of like camaraderie and friendship that exists. Like we go to each other's houses and everything like that. And not saying I never go to anyone's house outside of that. I'm just not normally invited or considered for it for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just like too much of an angry black woman. I totally own that, by the way. That's fine. So I think that, that's just that's the lines that it fell across, here in my community, where it's just like Native born Americans definitely have their own thing going on. And it's like now it's like more. It's not just like native born American United States. Like I'm talking about like across, up and down, people from backgrounds up and down the Western Hemisphere. In this
Yeah.
community, at least, seem to gravitate towards each other more and kind of click a little better than
Yeah.
and are mutually alienated. Are mutually alienated from like this Arab Desi type of thing, and and even to some extent from African,
Oh
Black
yeah.
Africans. So I get three, like I got three heads. I get looked at like I got three heads by Nigerian women.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
so it's not just like like a total Arab Desi thing. So I'm just wondering if like okay, so it's just that was just like you wanted to stay true to the cultural experience of living
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh, and because I'm
Inner
just
city.
kind of like thinking of how problematic would it be if it was a diverse community and this woman is going through this and say it's like an Arab imam or
Yeah. Yeah.
like what would she be going through at that point? And not for nothing, they would be real hard pressed to find a bunch of like you're not going to get a whole but the same amount of brothers to go protect
No, you can't round
them.
up nobody. Back in the
No,
day, they would round up brothers.
you would get the Native American,
Absolutely.
you could get the Native born American brothers. It's like the African American and the Latino American and the white American brothers would be down.
Yeah.
We're gonna go protect the sister. But outside
Yeah.
of that, yeah, Omar and Masood and Jabril would have found themselves alone.
Yeah, they'd have been by themselves.
So
Because
I
those
would have got
are just some of the things that go down in the Muslim, indigenous American Muslim communities. If there's a situation, sometimes they will handle it themselves. We're not going to call the police for this situation. This is an in-house situation that we have to work out ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, because how long is it going to take the police to get there anyway? So,
Yeah.
but I want to roll back a little bit on the three characters I just mentioned, Masood, Jabril, and Omar. Okay, Jabril I thought was the classic leading man. I really, really liked him. Again, I would have liked a little bit more of him. Okay, and a little bit more of him and Mateo. Like, I like that thing. So hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah.
I can see those two alpha males going at it.
Yeah.
Foreign body in the middle.
Mhm.
And so this whole idea that these are three men from three different families. Okay, Imani is Masoud's sister. Okay,
Mhm.
but Omar and Jabril feel just as much commitment to protecting her. I mean, they end up
Yeah.
in a very dangerous situation. Okay, they feel just as much commitment in protecting her, as well as other brothers from the community,
Mhm.
in protecting this woman who actually decide this is because of her life's choices that she's in
Yeah.
this situation. But they disregard that and they put themselves in harm's way to protect her. So why? What are some of the motivating factors to lead? Uh, 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 like in the culture that kind of like what is the messaging that Muslim men are being sent that they feel this sense of obligation to protecting a woman outside of their immediate family? Because generally, there isn't a tendency for men across the board to do that. Okay.
Mhm.
A lot of times, when it comes to masculinities, there's this whole notion of women as a commodity, as something that they get use out of. Okay. And so those women you protect, the
Right.
your wives who you're having sex and children with, your mother who was your first nurturer, your sisters who you've been duty bound to protect them. But beyond that, really, if a woman is not a value in the sense of gratifying a man's immediate needs, then there's not that much energy that he's willing to put forth to protect her across the board. I'm not just talking about Muslim men. So now you have these three Muslim men. One definitely had seen this is his sister. I can dig it. Omar, he's a bit of a stretch, but I can see it because that's his wife's sister. Okay.
Right.
But Jabril is like, yeah, like totally has. So, what is it that's happening in African American Muslim communities? And I mean, you've seen it like all the way back from the Black Muslim movement with Malcolm X and his whole assertion that we're protectors of our women and put your hands on our women. So, what is the messaging that's being sent to these young men that they're willing to protect her?
Yeah, I think that Jabril, he talked about when Imani, when he was following her, he said, what are you doing? And he said, well, the men in our community have been doing this, for 30, 40 years. So him being born Muslim, seeing that wave of Muslims coming out of that, Black Panther, Black Pride movement, Dar al-Islam, where you had Muslim security guards. Growing up from Dar al-Islam, we had security at the masjid. That was it. Young brothers 13 and up were on security detail at masjid. And so it was just a reference to a time when Muslim men were taught to, as we said, provide and protect Muslim women in their community.
Well, I had this conversation a couple of months back with Khalil Ismail about this whole transition from being protector and nurturer to being controller. And oh my God, there was this great Facebook post. I forgot the brother's name. He was like, we need to be shields for our sisters instead of lids. Okay. I can't remember the brother's name, but I was like, oh wow, that was profound. And I love that it came from a man. And so that this transition from shield to lid, from protector and nurturer to controller, okay? Which the only real controller in your book is Mateo. The only male controller in your book is Mateo. All the other ones are very much in this role of protector and nurturer. Now, you said that's you're like giving homage to something back in the day. Do you think that still exists? Do you think that it exists to some extent? It's just not as prevalent in Muslim communities, specifically African American Muslim communities. And given what's going on in the United States when it comes to Muslim women, do you think that Muslim women should encourage Muslim men to kind of retake that role more?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely pockets of Muslim communities that I've seen and have visited where I know in Baltimore, every time I go to the Muslim Sisters conference in Baltimore, Maryland, they have young brothers on security details. And so it's nice to see, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, sister, do you need help going this way? Can I carry your bags? They're trying to help. They're young brothers, but they're being reared to protect, help, assist. So I still see it. And I think it needs to be advanced. Again, mentorship of young Muslim boys and young youth to understand how do you provide protection for sisters. Protection rather than control. It's good to help sisters. To control them and to stifle them is not what this deen is about. That's not what Allah has obligated you to do. So we have to be clear about that. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we are still passing on the tradition of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his sunnah to take care of the Muslim women, to cherish them, to love them, to be aware of them, to help them, and to make sure that they are blossoming in the right way.
So do you think that that's something that has to be taught at an early age? And if so, what are some of the more optimal ways of doing it? Is it something where it's just like having programs specifically geared towards young Muslim men, like you say, learning how to, because we used to have like all kinds of martial arts classes and stuff like that for them, and that's kind of like gone by the wayside, I think, a lot of times. And even like you said, like 13 and up. I mean, like I said, like I have a very diverse masjid, but the security isn't diverse. Okay, it's like, there's one Arab brother's really cool, but all of them are all the rest like African American, Caribbean American.
Brothers on security at the Desi Masajid. They know when to call and who to call when there's a problem. You know what? I think it is so important. And you had a post on your page that I thought was on your Instagram page in regards to some situation. And I was saying that, I think it was about a young Black man who was talking negatively about Black women. And we were saying, like, where is this coming from? As mothers, our sisters, our aunts, our teachers, we are our boys. We are their school. We are their home. We are their what they need to about us. Oftentimes, sisters will just forget about it until the child is, 16, 17, 18. That's too late. We have to start instilling love of us into these boys early on. Love your mother, love your sister, love your aunts, your nieces. Take care of them. Be good to them. Be patient with them. Help them. I've seen certain times, even here, so many times I've had to tell boys, don't let that maid carry those bags up the stairs for you. You understand? I'm living in the go. There's maids here. Young boys, 16, 17, 18, will have a female maid carry their book bags up the stairs.
No, they don't.
And I'm saying, where they do that at, brother? Put that bag down, sis, and let him carry his own bags. You, what he can help you with.
But I also think that there's also a larger social construct that's happening. And I'm very much putting Black Muslim men on blast for this, because you should know better.
Yeah, they should.
You should know better. It's like they get you have this guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know what it's like to go through anti-Blackness and racism in the confines from your co-adherents. Why in the world are you dogging out Black Muslim women? Like, it's one thing that the Black men in general like to do that, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. But it's like, you got Hidayah now, all right? So the least you can do is shut up with all of that. You can shut that claptrap down, because there definitely still very much is these conversations of color preference among African American Black Muslim men. They still got their stuff messed up, and they telling the young boys that, okay? And you don't see it really that much among other cultures. Like, they're not, like white men are not dogging out white women, even when they marry non-white women.
Anybody except Black men.
Yeah, it's like that's like our special little thing that we have going on. It's like, I don't want you, and the way I'm gonna justify that is to dog out, make all of these generalizations and stereotypes about you. And so it's like, that's what happens in the culture, period. But it's just like, now in the Muslim culture, can you tone that down, like, for real? Because it's garbage. It's garbage. So yes, I think that we definitely, as mothers, we should be having certain relationships with our sons and certain relationships with our daughters. Then the next is the fathers, because a father that's in the home is definitely training the sons how to treat the women in their homes. and I see
Right.
myself. I see that. I used to push back against it a lot of times when the boys were little, and my husband just finally said, "Listen, okay, it's my job to raise them to be men. You're the mama. You can fix the cuts and scrapes, but it's my job to raise them to be men." Okay, and so then I rolled back on, and the thing was is like this there is like this toxic masculine culture, and you're
Yeah.
afraid of it as a woman.
Yeah.
Period. You're afraid of it, and you're afraid of your son coming part of it. But there are things that are in the culture that are non-toxic, and you trust and you hope that your husband or the male figure in their lives are not a part of the toxic part of the culture.
Right.
So I had to sit back and look and watch, because at the same time it was just like, why you can't just let the boy cry, like that type of thing, which we pushed back for years on that one. But it's also the messaging, like, you don't make your mother cry. Like, what type of
Yeah.
person are you to make your mother cry? Your mother's in there crying. Why is your mother in there crying? Like, you're the lowest thing in the world because you made your mother
Right.
cry. So it's just like this. There are like all of these messages that they're getting from their father or the male role models, their immediate male role model. And then they go out and they have these conversations with other dumb young men like them. Okay. And I say dumb because I've heard some of the conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they have those conversations. And then there is the brotherhood. Okay. And that's what I'm talking about in particular. This brotherhood where it's just like you talk about Black Muslim women like they're the lowest of the low. And don't pretend that you don't have those conversations, because you do.
They
Okay.
do.
And so your son comes home with it, and you're like, what? What is this? What is going on? I didn't teach you that. Okay.
Mhm.
Your father may not have taught you that. So where are you getting it from? So I understand your point, but I think that brothers need to kind of get their mouths right.
Oh, brothers got to put their work in all the time. Brothers need to go to work. Brothers need to get it done. But I think for Muslim women, we have to be interrupters. We have to interrupt the bull stuff and let them know this is not okay. I've had sisters say, okay, so and so is looking for, they're talking about, do you know any sisters to get married? My cousin needs a wife, but he only want, a light-skinned sister or Arab sister or a Pakistani sister. And I'm looking at the sister and like, this is your brother, as brown as you. Didn't you tell him? Why didn't you tell him?
What about that whole sick thing where it's like,
Yeah,
you don't mind how black she is. You don't mind how black she is, as long as she's not African American.
and that's the other thing too.
You don't care how black
Yeah.
she is, as long as she's not African American. And not for nothing. Not for nothing. And I'm going to go off on a little tirade right here. But you know what? Honestly, African American men, black men, Arab men, Arab women, Desi men, Desi women, your behinds would be nowhere if it wasn't for the fact that African American women are so awesome and fighting and resisting the garbage that's thrown at us. Okay, Nation of Islam would be nowhere. Okay, without Sister Clara Muhammad. I'm gonna say it straight out, point blank. Y'all would be nowhere. You can Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad all you want. The civil rights movement would have been nowhere without African American women. Everything is started by African American women. So why y'all can't just show us some love? They just had the whole election. Where was it, in Louisiana? Where this alleged, okay, molester was getting voted in by white men and white women, okay? And it was the black women came out full force, and his opponent won. So it's just like, it's that Me Too, the hashtag Me Too, even though they didn't show her on Time Magazine, was started by a black woman. Black Lives Matter was started by black women. So it's like, are you for real? Are you serious?
Yeah.
We're the ones, I'm sorry, when I looked at the conversations, like all through the history, because that was what I did my master's work on, was with the American Muslim culture. And I'm not, quite honestly, African American Muslim women were the ones that were saying, I don't owe you any excuses. I don't need to apologize. And I'm going to live my life. And I'm going to practice my faith. And screw you. So that whole unapologetic type of attitude and everything like that, everybody else across the board was kowtowing. Hold on a second, because Santa Claus is coming by my house. Believe it or not, it's like you can't escape it. And this is just like a cruel irony, because I was like, I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm not writing an article about Christmas. And then he goes right on by. Okay, back to my rant. So it's just like that whole idea, for the first time, when I first saw a post just this week where it was like this Daisy activist was like, yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't know, owe you any explanation for a terrorist attack, and I don't have to qualify my being Muslim to you and everything like that. I'm like, we've been saying that for 50 years, brother. What are you saying? Type of thing. So it's like, honestly, really, why all of the hate? Why are you hating the very demographic that has been upholding this dean in this society for so long? So y'all need to just kind of like roll back on all of that. I had a conversation with an artist, Sharifa, Aliyah Sharif. Okay, and she was writing something, and she was like, I didn't want to come off too angry. I was like, say it with your chest. Because that's how we do it. I got an angry black woman. She's sitting on my shoulder, okay? And don't set her off, because that's what you're going to get. So it's just like, but they hate that. The very thing that has given this American Ummah strength and consistency for decades, okay, is the very thing that they're consistently hating on, and they need to just kind of roll back on that, okay?
And no, even financially, to this day, Muslim women are supporting, especially African American Muslim women and Latino women. The light wouldn't be on in the Muslims. Who's selling the gas?
Yep.
Who's watching the kids? Who's fundraising? Who's running the schools? Who's starting the schools? Who's starting the homeschooling co-op? Muslim women. African American Muslim women have consistently been at the forefront of giving their all to the deen. And there hasn't been a lot of respect or reciprocity for what we do and contribute to the Ummah from our own and from outsiders. And it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. I constantly get asked, why do you write urban Muslim fiction? Because I'm an urban Muslim. I'm going to represent myself and my family and the Muslims who have helped to raise me until my last day, inshallah. That's why. All of the books. Don't ask no more. Every single one of the books that I do is going to be by my people.
Yeah. I already had, I have a few manuscripts that I'm working on, and I had my content editor early on say to me, okay, but all your heroines are African American. I was like, yes, they are.
That's right.
Yes, they are, and they're going to be. That's where I am. And that's what I'm embracing, and that's what I'm writing about, because frankly, we're not written about enough. And
no, we're not.
I can write something, and that's what I'm going to write about. So yes, they're all African American, and they're all strong African American women, and they'll all tell you about yourself. But that's what they don't like. They hate it, they love it, and then they hate it. They love it because it's necessary for us to be a certain way in order to navigate in this society. I mean, I once had a colleague, a white male at the college, who I just really had to say to him, I said, I know it's as unimaginable as it is for you to understand. Every day of my life, since I could cognate it, I realize from the time I wake up in the morning to the time I go to bed at night, somebody somewhere is going to have a problem about my existence. And I know that that's not your experience, but that's my experience. And so when I became Muslim, that continued to be my experience. So even when I thought I had some respite, Like, you think you can go to the masjid, we're all brothers and sisters and everything like that. No, then you got to combat it there too. Okay,
Yeah.
you have no one wants to take a plate from you. No one wants to stand and pray next to you. Okay, despite the fact that I'm a writer. Okay, and they don't want me on the board. They hired a man. They put a man as secretary on the board. And so what they do is they ask my husband, "Can you ask your wife to look this over? Can you ask her to look this over and write it, and rewrite it real quickly?"
Yep.
So it's just like that's the way it is. It's like at the same time that any benefit that I have for the ummah, which is a mercy from Allah, is the same thing that's hated by that very own. And I just need to kind of roll back on that. And I'm like pointing out to African American men, and I'm saying you should know better because you're experiencing it too. So why are you doing it to us?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it to us, brothers? Why? That's the only question. Thank you so much, sis. You have got to go write Mateo now. I don't care what else.
Inshallah. They'll come back, inshallah.
Mateo has to come back. Do not do to me what other authors do, where it's just like you make this phenomenal character and you never see that character again. Okay? Mateo's too much. Him and his whole family.
His whole family. They all crazy.
His family is not done with Imani. They're not. They're just not done with her. She's too enmeshed. They gotta have more stuff coming down the pipe. Awesome book to read. A really good assortment of characters and issues that you address in a way that really reflects a lot of the complexities of the African American Muslim experience. So Jazakallah khairan, and keep those keyboards clicking, sister. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Jazakallah for joining us for NbA Muslim.
Assalamu alaikum.